In a documentary movie I viewed the other day, ordinary people were talking about the war. A barber, a truck driver, some housewives, a fireman, a store clerk. They said the usual things. Several people complained that the government in Washington didn't seem to be paying attention to the fact that most people wanted the war to end. One person said there were too many politicians making money on the war from defense contractors. When a man who seemed to support the war told a woman that she shouldn't be so outspoken, she told him she didn't think she needed to be polite because people's kids were dying in the war. A young man who had just returned from the war told his friends at a bar about how he had gone to the funeral of a buddy who had been killed and what the death had done to his buddy's family. A number of people talked about how we could use our money more productively at home, on schools and hospitals. A young woman told of a young man she knew coming home injured. What the people were saying is heard so often these days that the movie would have been boring if it weren't for the fact that the movie was shot during the Vietnam War. That one fact made the film riveting. An entire generation ago, the American people felt exactly the way they feel today. Frustrated, betrayed by our leaders, angry. They were upset by the same waste and cruelty and senselessness that we confront today. If you closed your eyes so you didn't see the 1960s haircuts and clothing, and you just listened to the soundtrack, the movie could have been filmed today. Eventually, we will probably get out of Iraq, just as we finally got out of Vietnam. What we don't know yet is whether we will get into another tragic war in the future. A politician was recently asked whether he thought we should have started the Iraq War in the first place. He said that didn't matter right now, it was spilt milk, and what mattered now was when and how we would get out. He was only half right. We should be focusing our attention on how to end the war, but we still need to think about how and why we got into the war. Because if we don't, the next war will probably come sooner rather than later. After the Vietnam War, the country was exhausted. For a long time, no one wanted to talk about the war. There weren't many movies about the war. So we forgot the lessons of that war. And when Bush wanted to start the Iraq War, he was able to persuade a lot of people that war is easy and glorious and good. As we read these days about happy families welcoming soldiers back from Iraq, and grateful towns holding parades for the returning fighting men and women, it is easy to see how we may quickly forget the lessons of the Iraq War, just as we forgot the lessons of Vietnam. The militarists would like that, so they'll keep erecting war memorials and making speeches about valor and handing out medals. They won't want to talk about the killing and maiming and suffering, and they'll discourage other people from talking about these things, telling them that such talk doesn't honor our brave troops. Reminding our nation that just like Vietnam, this war was wrong and a disgrace to our country won't be a popular thing to do. But if we want to keep from having another disastrous war, that's what we're going to have to do.